of our Language of Webinar Wellness series. Enfas the Ipawit, Quinitamal Nisne Kira Jack, Tanitsan Uth Spanalikat. My name is Kira Jack. I'm from Penalicut Island. I am the Mid and North Island Wellness Coordinator with Hape Wellness, and I am going to be your host today. This webinar is held in partnership with First Nations Health Authority, the Vancouver Island region, the First Peoples Cultural Council, and Hape Wellness. It is with these partnerships and our relationships in community that we've been able to invite fluent speakers and language champions to participate. The webinar series is a 5-part series that focuses on Indigenous language revitalization on Vancouver Island. I would like to also acknowledge quickly our team that has helped make this webinar possible. From First Nations Health Authority, Larissa, Sarah, and Jessica. And from Hape Wellness, Marco, Farron, and myself. This webinar series highlights the linkage between health and language, with aims to demonstrate that language learning and revitalization has a holistic approach to health and wellness. The language series focuses on 4 to 6 languages from Vancouver Island: Nuu-chah-nulth, Kwakwala, Halkwaminam, and SENÇOÞEN. Today we have 4 amazing SENÇOԹEN speakers that are our guest speakers. And before I hand the spotlight over to them, I would just like to remind you all that we are doing a webinar format. So the panelists and guest speakers are not able to hear or see you. So feel free to put any questions in the Q&A or chat box. And while they may not be answered right away, we will take note of them and they will get answered throughout the Zoom. So do not worry. With that being said, Haichka, I would like to hand the spotlight over to some of our guest speakers.
Haichka siam Kira. Teacher Squilla Kunkins Etha Kuntal Naquila ACM. Tua Salta the Stray Etha at the Squestivius, he to steal them. So as such Tetang ACM Squatalicia Hakus Conengus Etha steal them. E Chesta. So thank you all for coming here today. I'm very happy to share our journey here as SENÇOԹEN learners. And I'd like to start with a prayer and a stevia. A prayer and a couple songs. Steal them. So Haishka Hela Kunzene. Teachers Nashquilla Kunskins Ethla Moxie. Siem Gelds, Nakochacha, Siem. Teachers Nashquilla Quinti Enoch. Moxen Kuns Angus Tau. Meaning teachers da. Elish J. SSA to Shulakwasha Tia. As it is keepers, Che Novel, Che Quintalt, I Squiliquin, the late nunk the squilsta. The sleekun is stallock the squil, Siems, Etatango, Lee Elton and SENÇOԹEN. He lay Elton and the mock, the squil to Hulmuk, Cosquilmuk, the Tango. Dio is Elta at the Squest Squelks, Che. Dio is Elta at the Squest Jakes, the Schwanex Kuchistum, Constalling of Ningle. Siem Helts Nakochacha, Siem New Chichesta. Mok at the Elis Netskons Angus Tau. Nil at the Thithis Ngenetsta. Mok the Scalelmo, the Huchistan Slong at Ningal the Scalelmo. Mok the Ecolang at the Zeletsam la the Squecho. Mok at the Teletathang, Ejecting la the Chatlook at the Shishitsta. Siem Helts Hachath Siem Kunengatau, Kunengatau. Kunengatau Halit das Jay noch at the Squanasta. Halit das Jay noch at the Mox Jalachas the La. Heoxasta and Huchistan and Snapanax and Sauhalix on a stau. New Jichis Dasiums, Kunengatau at the Teo Sainach. As the dear tongue on a stalk the Elis Nets. New Jichis da at the Schwalaquasta, Quant, Mok das Jalacha the Quilno, Quant the Mox Hetes. X Llewnang at ysgall, dy chisol sgall, I moc sgall cwstli gap cape dysgall. Cwnneng y taw chachat I siam at ysgall jays, ella ti enox quacol I halit dysgall. Ashka hela kunsa in him. So I'm just going to pause my video for a second, and I'll talk a little bit about the prayer a little bit later on in our session. So Hashka hela kuns lalatnang, and I'm just going to pause while I move my computer for 1 second. Hashka hela kuns atla. So we're going to share 2 songs today, and then one of our songs we're going to sing. We'll sing both songs together, but our first song, just a prayer song, and just to share with everybody. This song came from Alicia, and I appreciate her sharing for us to deal them. And our second song we're going to sing is our SENÇOÞEN prayer song that we sing every day. And we call it a SENÇOԹEN prayer song, and just that in the main, the PS deal them, and our SENÇOԹEN, our Hashkamen, Kustala Kustil, Mikuchi Stalk. Thank you, my dad, for sharing the song with all of us to pray with. And so this song is our SENÇOԹEN Stilum, our Stiwith is a prayer song for all languages. We pray for all languages to live as our as a huchistan, as a teaching, to acknowledge all languages that are struggling to survive and pray that they once again be strong and healthy in our communities again, all across the world. Our nation and every other nation. Okay. Start with our first song. Oh,
Asiam. Teacher Senate.
Uitstellen.
Eli. Slenixikseekse steelam. Hoyang. Awanekse satqa. Moko hoyamalakse. Nisiu lenoksumokstingetse. Awanata anox. Awa. Aite hoyang. Ate en steelam. So ai huiskasiam.
Hey, uitstellen.
All right, hi Scott. Please excuse the noises. There's always lots of background noise in our house here. Hi Scott, and Squasquil Jichasin. So just a quick round of gonna just say a few words around our stay at Tienuk. So hi Scott, Moksain Kusalatnung. I have a hard time going back between English, so I just keep jumping right into SENÇOÞEN. But what we're going to do today is I just thought it'd be really nice just to share some of our like a session with you all, like an immersion session. So I just like to call now or just have a conversation with our my Stelicha Etha or my awesome relatives that are here with me today, my main and my Se'ichin Penech, who is my first cousin, and of course my Stalis Swatalicia, and Shpilikan Konstalik to steal him, Haishka Swatalicia. So again, just thought I'd share quickly just a little bit more of our stay and what we decided to do today for the SENÇOΘEN webinar. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about our work and the movement of language revitalization, the movement of bringing languages back to our homelands, inside in our beings, and inside of who we are as Fluent people to be able to speak our language. So I thought I'd just share that quickly, and I do have a couple things to share, like on a PowerPoint, but it'd be nice to see you guys on Salsasas. It'd be nice to see your faces too at the same time. So yeah, so I think we're going to get started on our immersion session. What we'll do is we're going to have a immersion session with our Stelicha Etha, and then I think we're going to go for quite a while here. Hopefully up to 20 minutes. It could possibly go up to 30. I guess we'll kind of go with the flow of how the session goes. I just would really like to visit with our Stelicha in Stetang Hela and Squasquel, or and Netut Ali Kolnawa, Hikechang Nuhacha, Aikochex, Hikecha. And talk a little bit more about our goals here as a Satanich community and what we're going to be able to bring to our Sklikas and Kuchista Squelsta. So I think so I'm just going to get started. We're just going to get started now. Please let us know if you are if you have any questions. Please write them in the box, and we'll get to your questions after the immersion session. And then after immersion session, I think we'll talk about our Lanongat Skuleut, which is our jobs through the Satanich community at the Shellnook Tribal School. So Haishka Hela, stay to what, Maxine, stay to what. So Haishka, I said to what. I think what I'll do is I will introduce everybody. So in English first, just to give everybody an idea of who we are. So Haishka Hela Kunslaitnung. My name is Penechung, and I am currently a teacher at our SENÜOFEN Tribal School, teaching our immersion grade 5-6 at the moment. And I've asked my dear relatives to come, respected relatives to come today. My main SENÜOFEN, my father, John Elliott, Dr. John Elliott Sr., and currently goes by the SNET SENÜOFEN, Nahingat SNES SENÜOFEN. My Shwakwa, my first cousin, we're basically siblings. Penech, David Underwood, and my Stalis, Swatalicia, who is currently the language coordinator at our language school out. And I've asked you guys all today, and I was really hoping we could invite more of our Shchilacha, but one day we'll be able to introduce everybody as a team. But I really appreciate you guys all being here today. Swatalicia, Renee, Sampson. We share 3 daughters together, and that's what I said in my introduction on the pamphlet there. So we have 3 daughters named Talicia, Likuthia, and Thailia, who are all named by my Jacinton helped us with all those names. And I always say I'd have to say my kind of language journey, even though I didn't know it, started when I was born with my name given to me, and I was never given an English name, and so I kept that within my own, not my own children when they were born. It's just to practice that rite of using our language to name our ngana. And I know Penech has done the same, and I'll give you guys a chance to talk about that later. So Haishka stay to up Moxane, Haishka Hila Kunsuitnam. Just gonna start the immersion session now. I'll see him. Hey. So Haishka. So Colette Penechung, the Nashna, Chesalas, and Atl Sainich. He Elalang at Huchathal. So Jason lesson at Elalang Huchathal. Heath, let's see, Nokchit. Lokashesh, Chilenan, Yakacha. He Channel said Mokachin, Lata Matulia, Lata Atlasin, Atlatia Pocachin, Atlatia Enoch. Quintal Nostalis, Atla. RCM, Hawkins, Nith Namin, Jacinton, Sla at Senich, Nith Natain, Sla at Nathalangoch Tangoch, Mowachet, Machelet. So that's a squitch on the sleekunus, Itatanoch the squells, Nathalangoch squells. Liukanana, Yathaslas in the Snez at that, Talicia, Likuthia. The Ilia Nishingan Ngan Skolakwa, Chesalas and the Elliot Skolakwa, Jichis the Squeliquins, Moxtinks, on Stach at the Squel, the Scalis, Huchistings, Ngan, Eli Skolakwa. So Haishka Consulating Skull, Hitcha, Siam to the main, Hunkunst, Tonach and Slash, Haishka.
It's quite a Siam Nestella, Jacinton in the squareness. Listen at the Charles, Elang at the Sanach. Is in so quite an equality and of this question at the and it's quite a nest shakeness, he's got nest shay, one chilan, nest shay at this question square, SENÜOFEN, Quintal this lala, this lala, two chays and Quintal the end of the national quacks, Salala. Select and then a square nest shay Quintal to chase and Quintal the end at the square, who moxias he. Het schoem, het sliks hoe Jesus leert gaat uit de schoenings. Het loopt dus twee contacten na kwasini ha. Ik is na se echen, teen het benech, het toe het de contact se lilie na se echen slash zout, dus twee, hoe loopt dus I talk sent the next shade to contact the next year at box touches let you change now contact at this quest this well to mox quite it is else is one so lee yes mock he could look the chocolate he look to connect see like squash nest at tongue wow box thing it's look He's got a chair at the school out, la contalte, looked in a chalapa, as he mocked there, chella, la what salang at niggas lala slopa last time. He take contal there, lala last time. Nano Eli, I met there, lala last day, so last that day, take contal. He need to connect there, next to he take Angus, that's quite nice quell. Slated main la, it in a tain la. Isol sitchless is the selection who is the luck that the really I met this that the teachers this time as well.
Yeah.
Hey, Nito. Nito as well. Loud Lama.
Asa.
To Kinako.
Aye. So, siap na stelle chat. Like ni skoil ni sele tie nok. Yes no is ni siu che tie next skoil. Asa panechi slesen it's out at set niche. Nilkje se ne lange le ni si sang. Well sin le kontal ni swala kwa kolexes kneng se tie skoil. I chasen at this quality nok o nil opnisio calculation snes o moxen ni skola kwa kuneng le xi cheli squawkles quasinia tena ten nil se agents in this age the age sington quastine tena men o nil o quaital sinexe o underwood the skola kwa o nil o Underwood's it's out. We call it chapatana. See la he wouldn't not talk so chestness la long at na see la he nilt na see la the schwelis netain at panech it's nes nisuchao sitienok angstungsen te nisuchahos David Elliott at the ex or Kunitum Consness. Hey, Hemia at Nancy la Beatrice Elliott at the stars. See la. So, who else in it setting it suits less in the theatre. Jason Xishkinang City is quail. Contalks who Elingi swallows who checks which connects it, so school codes aquas at the grades at the school. I nil Jason next school at the University of Victoria who contal at St. Charles and East schools. I thought no so twa nilse twa huchistanak. The nil schools. So Jason at the yes in all nesele tie nok Sijitanga Quanquaco, yes, no is necessarily you call no wall has the tour at the teachers and CM High School.
High School Moxin, High School the station, Pinachung, he genu is and Kunanga, he call now Contalna, yet Mexwalaka Etla. Squatelicia, Thana Snatch, Slat, yet Metungo at Hetnich. Na ela lang zetla aquachin na main I taint slat setnich na main slat aquachin na taint slat asla ithana salsila slat asla I na sila eithlat aquachin slat couchini umenis. Na sila la. Tu ei talta noch sin at the SENÇOÞEN squel. I che isin quintalta mux de likat lich isung de nosso theia quintalta squel. Che I la the school out at the SENÇOÞEN program facilitator. I kunganito quintalta huchis tanok la tala. Mukta squachel. Inessa squachel nisliquinis che at the siwak shrenik siwawa nisliquinis across the muk satnich huilngo at the janu kwamp shrenik sat lingel at the SENÇOÞEN squelta. Heathla yet la sinach at the hunitum kan school out. He awana SENÇOÞEN la the school out. La the public school.
Kung meet kang
Tihuang yatalu Shui wal shwanink si lengsin at the awana noch cheap. So Thielach sin at the yaitmet squel that's SENÇOÞEN so ji sung finish squela quins tall noch at Pete noch at the mok staying at SENÇOÞEN the worldview that the squela quin mok the squachel diwil sin I denu eas sin I ji just sin at the mok which is things just let the just let the Thietlas siam to angst toch at the eli snit quins islok si long that at the mok stlikasta Haiska mok sein in a sleekwinis qualnawal at the mok wikachung shrinks I qualnawal at the squel Haiska.
Aishka, ASEM is chill chat and squel, swalakwa. So, kung ali ni tutkung ta wacha, kokluan lesson, ni thastan na kuchil, squatty, sha. Nenu squatty stat kuchil. Yeah, so konach at Stime Ela Nastalas, Stanga Dacha, Nenu it's among the Schanapten. So I want to cheat, I want to do listen that and Scalite and Quitching Stalings. Nisha Kacha or Nisha Kacha Kongatang Stalactic, the Stime Ela. I want to teach the squirrels at that. I was Stima.
Oh,
Yeah.
Skilla hela.
Skilla
hela.
Idan skilla hela kunst kwatta wai se.
Yeah, so because or Kongatung's the electric at the Dongans who what amongst the Schanapton, sha.
Ishatung latsin latalask. Sha ni konadata Shiwa mukachin. Schaas all
Shiwa.
Stacha hoth. And data call Genual Quincy. I was aita. Data call at the Shkila Hila. At the
Shitchal Papa Skecha.
I was in Skacha that at the Shkila Hila, so Kung Ali Quaning Achatalai, your thoughts can I hung.
Gentle does not then Skacha.
Yeah.
You know, and the Thuckies now at us. Ethan at the Ngunt Slukes the tear. That's not.
I can still look the Stucky la and squash. Laat zaken na tranquillet in het Enoch. Ik ziet het is lucky. So thalak sinsa kan down the quilia teaches as well kan zeggen. I hele catch as it is now kun west Stockweek.
Oh,
Yeah. I was thinking
was this konge lakacha.
Yeah, so sliuch Stocky lad socket, then this socket la. So now with the cooler, watcha cooler. So sliuch now with the ngunt smile.
my or kwe watch. I'm gonna
Ngunt
Hugo Sluks the Smythe kwe watch.
yeah.
Sluks on Sluks that. Sinquin decent at your tangen.
This is an thing and concession.
Jo, you know, it long stay when it that.
Sorry, so.
Ngan eight seasons. Sla noch cheat than a shy Adam, you will state one already. Well, I'm not cheat.
Wow. It's a luck. This squash success. Scatchers.
Oh, French kacha sexe.
Yep, scotches the sluke, smile sluke at the Shire at Swatalicia.
Oh,
Not just gelekungs, just lan schwak wanwano wet, skikungs the smile.
oh.
Yeah, mak the sluke at thing at Stockweek, just la aquachin. Is aangestaan at de steenig. Gewoon een niet lauw at Thucky.
Oh, across tongue unchullis,
The steen.
Unchullis at the Colnell that the Wiki Junction Inks hour. I was across tongue at that.
Yeah, across lang het no, it's a minute. Doe chasing at square zoom to not skukko.
Sane.
Kunengatanga ups angest at host. Hey, so see not a minute, Max.
Yes, Axia Tingen, me waba. Chase that the swam at Lilithan.
Oh, hat.
Swam at Lilithan, Genu, I met at the muck. Schullis slat Sarah Jim.
Ah,
Good.
and I feel like when because she literally high nong at the swim at the Lilithan.
Ha, ngasa share pages that at the book, Genu, lacked that so late that when at the swim the readers theater that so this leak when it's across the muck saying you on it to squitch us.
This is success exchange. Let's stay scholars.
Yeah, Thalaksin the Scholars. Well, now that the Schwanank the Squata, Asha Squata.
La coquelte at Filquilam, ya, la quelte tassa esquem. Squata, squata. Ha, malsitu stengels where hang say.
Dogs in the steel that squata, squata. El to squata. Malux in the muck squares of that.
Just Nista.
In Chatham East.
Right, so neat the Scholars. Oh, yeah, I.
Like that's us.
Yeah, Thalaksin.
They look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait.
Hey, neat. Lilithan. We am the Lilithan. So I squirrels at the Lilithan. So niche 2 GE. So Chileli high at the Tia.
Quest of the Cholasology in, okay?
Yeah, Scholas also. Need the Suilis Squata at so latings the Scholas at Sarah Jim, I Chalastia.
Dawson, yeah.
Kla.
Yeah, Katathan.
Dawson, le, Dawson, Kata. Lame testas ngennet.
Yeah,
Oh ha.
Katathan.
Niille huotista out.
Yeah.
Nisa, ja.
This lad's still that's Kata. Hey, yeah, so that's a squid shot to knock at the squails. Tash at the illig at Lallathan. Tash at the illig at Lallathan. Oh yeah, Itel, so Huchis at the Skukul the not just a squachel ox need to Hunitum Square Readers Theater. Not just squachel, Kolkalatans that Heath because Kolkalatans that Readers Theater Schwananks TSWM. Mullocks and the Squales at
Chitka song.
yeah, Chatcasing.
Sinä se taqallangas qila se huotsa.
Kun name. Chitka song.
Elis Kalaangs.
Ngans kalang si las now se.
Awin na panana hitla. Ni ko na talalit la.
Oh, no, lalat. Oh, ni.
Slat the king na tagwal. Huwag
Now, ni liu hacha.
Pe, wawa, pe.
Pesa.
Pes, no, chi.
Oh, Connacht the Slaney. I ate mit Slaney. I ate mit Slaney at Lallathan.
Check kay lang se chitka songs.
Niis kotis kos elekstes nangat se kota the squitch.
Chatcasings at the La Plaza. La Plaza.
Accountant that nesli the yait skasasnal. Skasasnal.
Salnal.
Klemal.
Kastlnalt, yeah. Kastlnalt.
Ja. Inil se u sklang sa chate se u nil natsa sa silin saltanang. Nuestas le nil tie apples nuestas les nawal.
Keo, gotcha, Keo.
Keuha, keuh.
He's the apples keo.
Yeah.
I was the apple sal.
It Macintosh when I get that.
I want thing
Malix in the hit. Malix in the snestia the
See.
Salnal.
Sasnas.
Quainang da the
Quangan.
Oh,
wingen.
say you.
Yeah.
What say you?
Say you was the Unila.
I'm going to say you at.
Yeah.
Say.
Say you.
Siem there's Kastlnalt that.
Good Neil.
Slini.
I this name says Lenny. I slang it.
Nis kota kochsisang na.
Season hat at
I think that to say let's the sauce lay.
the sauce and the sleep the sauce na how say lang ni wawa.
The kochsisang the sauce.
Yeah.
See, I talk at the South talk at the South.
Squatta winning at Loki.
Coxy sang to squata at the sauce.
And then at that, Mal Yasano Malak disclose at that. Malastu?
Oh, malast.
Malast. Likus Malastal.
Yeah, malastas to squata salalathan.
Okay, right. So, like, got the South, I miss Lenny, Lallathan, yeah.
Nis kota kosh
Jamat sacha.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
I schalla there this question.
Yeah. Who stinger jet kunstnet et who sashtna met such Skutaat lallasen Slesiks konitokse saasautskuneng su ni te saasas kuneng te saasa.
Jafalu chunning that.
Du goed dit al.
Hij geldt nou, slies als de skalangs.
Heel kokolewan Alex skalaangs. Meng success yet su konnet.
Zo zie je het is kwetskwella kwenses contact.
On the squat the squash
Mektastes kaas.
cars.
Dat je nanget.
Dat je naar het
Oh, and
Saas.
it's the squat. I was with a conny walk the squatchly wawa. Safe so shanks that.
Squash eating our nesting. This is what
Saas te namets.
Ja, zo. Kijk, wel kunt het lallen en zo. La leitnang. Stenga.
iets kwinge tanga.
Ja.
Twingetang.
Van dit klemmal daar.
Net zit skelish kwele kon kwastes skelish konengst saas konengst so honest say twingetang.
Nee, collect one ook de square, net zoals square. Hoe ik ben. Nee, hoe ik ben, dus Linux. Dat lukt.
No, kwastes skalaanga kwewel.
Nee. Niet de saaf dat spata.
Kwangal nanayang kotaaks konnet te
Je zal ik zeg, kan het ook zeggen, net gelang.
nan jochen zelen ha.
Denk
Maak de squirrels at that, the squirrels at the kuchis the slicker, skukkel, the slicker.
Shitang at skota.
En hij hele catch den zielen zo achen.
No, kwates. So, steno snow at the ngaxen, see, no, kwates, I like catch.
je doet tegen alles al.
Luncha.
Thanks.
I shanks that.
Lunchu hacha.
Schonings. Skota at
Ja. Oké, hij. Niet la. Kochach.
Kochachongs. Ja, kochachong.
Quick, ja. Saas.
Kochachen zo's lees, de zielen. Kochachen zo's.
I look the seat, Linda.
Oh, my.
Niet de schoenex, het is kota. Niet de schoenex.
Zelf is gewoon een stukje. Laat ik iets.
Ja, kongali.
Okay.
Gimma.
Running the quashu,
Ja.
I want to stay good distance. I was like,
Ja, kongali. Not to so the moksteng te silten su hatchten. I kolanje exe silten su koneng te. Nu kotlamatela sensa. Exe steno heisel siltens.
Weer het dank de zielen, maar ook geen. Zo. Klemma met Lenny.
Ja.
Maar het is Slancha.
Lunch.
Slunch, het is gewoon een ik klem wel thuis, leen ik toe. Geen dan qua.
Ja.
Tauchsin se scheilis se stelle wetch niet de latem.
Ja, hey.
Esa moksteng te tule. Te.
Niet kon het.
Hoe in de stam heel lang al.
Ja. Healing quad.
Zo gewoon het de straat la, de dangens. Hey.
Ja. Jenny te. Charles panel sa.
Nee.
Knock with
Oh. Nok nanget.
Naknanga too high.
Yeah.
Naknanga the seasons.
Ta.
Tu jasong yo kwat lalatin neng set squata. When it's said knock nang it's squangali hatchins.
Just in this case, connects.
Yeah. Yeah. Skota niet de squels at that. Het wacht het. Hij kunt je zo ergens. Dus
Okay. Kwakaters ja. I kunt je
I couldn't talk.
aquastis the sa. Nee.
ik had skota niet al. Staan het la. Sting nog kunnen stay. was niet nog de zo niks.
Oh, no, to connect the clock. Het is nonsense, Lenny.
So collect me. Niet dat de squirrels at the swim. Stetting oxygens, ja. Stetting oxygen. Kwek goed en na. Sting, season, skatja. So, when ox collect the seasons. Hang is the seasons at Skota, or at the Slaney at Skota. Ik ook kiest. Ja, ik speel ook een.
Okay, he's going to tell the seasons at Lalatan.
Shoot out to it out.
Mukula at the muk.
See,
Quake there, yeah.
Quake out there. Makula,
Kayak.
snow was at the
Kayak cantas kota.
Keen.
Ja, dus genings.
Schwanengs.
So je thast de kayaks. Not all sketches who eigenlijk. Dat Skota Slaney. Good tonight. Shast, yeah, Shast, Skota, the Slaney.
I was startless at skota.
Oh yeah, so kayak collect Huyokan, Ethan collect. Laat de Ethan collect the Skota, Kontaten en as he the stars. To Huyokan. Huyokan de Elungs at Lilithan.
Oh, collect the thing.
Yeah.
Gino at Lilith and he couldn't the sauces there.
Yeah, Gino.
Oh, correct. Illuxa.
Yeah.
Colette skota. Janelle.
Tweeëns collect ni see ut sa nice genings. Denk het.
No, quite like season.
Oh yeah, so collect the stet.
We went
So niet laat de squirrels. Ding uit je kon sessie. Sessie ook goed te sting. So sessie uit smaaiet. Oh ja, Stietsen, hè?
It says, see at the Eastern Smiles. Things.
Che laat de skeleut na tico na klaar komt ze leno.
Hey, dat is alles. Oh, Lena, chitness Lena, kokos.
Ethan Smythe. See at the chucks collections at the snakwa.
Ja.
You tell that.
It's like see like that. Snakwa.
At snakwa.
Oh, yes. Tjene. So Stietsen, dus mij, dat Stietsen te la.
Stietsen te.
Yeah.
En het lak tella.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
En denk het daar.
Yeah, that's it. Snakwa. Oh, I shouldn't see it. Slaney. Lalasen.
Lena ook zin ik zei kokos het seks laten zien dat die squeams. Hoe is het zie je kort Lena ook kokos stengels kokos. So quels the staying on it's at some chapter see questioners more connect so the staying at skota where say see at the ergangs staying out the quels the skota cockles at the mock staying to so quels at this one na
Yeah,
Nilsa
this.
so quel
Like test snack pa.
yeah oh
Oh, chat na nga dak sesi.
yeah Nilsa jet mo who say yeah
Yeah.
oh me
Dis likas khayal kan telang su tangaks des sesis.
yeah is me in set skota at chase
Yeah. So ye khayal kan. Malak
Yeah.
wel spinach panangata or emain. Panangata
yeah
Chuchte sa de tiet noch spel se.
Yeah.
Du chuneg tiet noch du. Sus se geist. Usli se geist
yeah
leni stau se le te mi men erlang. Lalla sen leni.
yeah haktes at jet no quacolsa
Tu hap des du chuneg de tiet noch.
hey. So chat na ngat sesi at chig noch. Tau in the shalas.
yeah my I was chewing me hazel te jet no I metal
Kun si sast.
The hanga I sesi so ye kwaning at yet I aus the shalas at ko elas
the quail say at skenet
Ja.
Ja.
Wel ik zie dat edem zo je kwanen dat ik zo je.
kalach set sle say at skenet
Halitson let the Q&A.
No, haiska. Ja,
Stelang Nisa
Nisa. Ai.
Oh, du weet het is konijn se. Het kort het is konijn just little dat is konijn se. Logistics Oh, toen denk ik je ook de eerlijk de sen ook de oudste stet de sen ook de spes is niet logistics. Oh, kan je kunnen konijn kort Oh.
Ja, ta luce sia the Lilithin at ye enok. Ko elas
Mhm.
to that
Ja, wel je skillen je goeie zie le tessa qua. Zo toch lalasen.
Who chase tongues at quants I quantsaw si Jay skunangs at skuta
Ja. Haiska. Nisa. Juan out the wage. Ni konnet. Nenu juan the wage.
Nisa skunangs
at the Schwenings at the school out stay yak the knitum kan no chi.
Yeah, I start
Up in one yes and up in sleep one at Miwawa yes and so.
Okay, I kun so to I kun squako at the long at school out. Teachers na school kun squako da. Ha kun sai so yeah, you cheat still up ne.
Het is de goeie.
Oh, Haiska Hela, that was our immersion session. I thought I'd share quickly. I thought it was gonna be quicker than that, but that's kind of how it goes with SENÇOFEN learning, especially when we get into our learning sessions. So last night we were working on this story that was made, considered to be a traditional story of SENÇOFEN, passed down by my main and many of our aunts and uncles, our late relatives of the past. I'm really grateful to be able to teach that story to our kids, and also really grateful for the illustrations done by Sarah Jim, amazing artist, and I really appreciate that work to bring that story to life. Aishka, so many more books to come, hopefully in our future. So I thought I would, I know there's been some questions in the Q&A, and Kira, if you would like to jump in, if there's any questions from the team at Hway Wellness, or also if there are any other questions.
Yes, well,
Thank you
oh,
for
6
allowing us to sit in and listen and witness and enjoy the beauty of the SENÇOÞEN language. We did have a couple questions come through. One of the first questions was to our SENÇOԹEN speakers at home with your children, is SENÇOԹEN your guys' first language with your little ones?
Well, I think I could, Pinesh will have a lot to say about this too, but it's pretty interesting with our daughters. Our daughters also represent where we were with our language learning, our language journey, because for myself, I was an adult language learner. So I didn't start learning SENÇOԹEN at all until I was in my 20s, until my first daughter was born, Talicia. And that was a really big push for me to start on my language journey. And I was just so, I felt just so honored to be able to part of a family that, you know, had dedicated their lives to language revitalization, especially SENÇOԹEN. And so when I first went to sessions, they were already in, of course, advanced levels of learning. And I didn't even know the alphabet. I didn't, my grandparents spoke Kalkaminam, and but they used terms like the command terms and things like that, like mewa and amit. And so for me, it was just really different, but it also really lit the fire in me. So when I had my ngana, Talicia, my lot ngana, just bring her along in her little car seat and just listen, you know, it's lalenong, lalenong, lalenong. You know, a part of becoming a learner is that language acquisition is when you are just first a silent listener, right? You're a silent learner until you come to a point where you are able to comprehend enough to be able to speak. But I said in here in the chat here that that we can be our hardest critics, you know, so that I was so lucky to have elders and sit with elders that were so nurturing and huiquin and kind and never ripped a strip off of us for saying things wrong. They let us know when we would say things wrong, and people let us know because we have lots of funny stories about elders leaning. What did you say? You better be careful what you said. You're going to be swearing or something. And they're like, ah. So there's lots of different things like that. So with our ngan'ana, just going back to that, with our children, you can see with their language understanding and their language comprehension where we were at as young parents in our language journey. So of course we have a lot of work to do still, because a lot of the times I was going to University of Victoria, getting my Bachelor of Education, getting my master's, and so I was a lot of time getting that education stuff done. And so then when we were ready to open up the Lanong at School Out, our middle child, she was 3 and 4, and so that's when we really started to use the language with the kids. But just going back to my oldest daughter, one day we're sitting around, and of course everything's about language in our household, about creating and building, and everything, our lives revolve around anything language revitalization. And she just picked up a book, and you know, one of our origin stories, I think it was the 13 Moons, and she started to read it. And I'm like, what? I'm like, how do you know how to read? And she's like, I don't know. She says, I just know how to read. She says, probably just from hearing you guys speak it around all the time. So that just goes to show too, like, we didn't realize how much speaking we were doing, or, you know, and whatnot. And then if you look at our youngest daughter, and we're like full in, you know, full in the language game. Her understanding her worldview and everything, you can totally tell where we were at in our lives as parents, because she's really quite gifted in the language. So yeah, so that's kind of answers that in a long-winded statement. Hi, Scott.
For
We like
myself, I
statements. Yeah, I was just going to ask if there's anyone else who had anything to add to that question.
yeah, maybe I will. For myself, I don't speak as much as at home as I should, and I think that happens to you in my generation, because there's a new generation of speakers coming along now, and my main thing was to get these guys to speak. These guys here that are now speaking like they are. That's been my main thing. And now we got those teachers teaching at the school and staying in the language all day. And sometimes I'll say some things to my family here at home, and sometimes I don't. But I think that happens in this generation of speakers, where that we were still of the generation of part of the denial of language was still happening, and so we're just building back our way. So when I'm with the people that speak well, I speak with them a lot, but not everybody speaks the language in my house, So it's from different experiences. It just happened that way, and I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of. It just happens in this generation, and I think that although I have learned the language um, well enough to speak in the language, pray in the language, think in the language. It's the next generation that is before you, the younger people than myself, that are even better, getting better than what we were when we were younger at their age. And I think we're on our journey homeward to have a language in our homes. And I hear that sometimes when I'm out in my yard, I hear some of our school children speak a language to one another out on the street. And that makes me really, really feel like we've come a ways. And I think that's important. And I think we're still on that journey home. And I think that's what we're wishing for still. Yeah.
Can I just acknowledge, though, that Pinech and Pinechong were those babies that were sitting in their car seats or whatever they sat in back in the day at those language sessions, So I feel like that, because Quisentia, Pinech's Tane, and Jasington and them were bringing Pinechin, Pinechong to these gatherings, that language acquisition was happening, right? So it's really important to expose the babies to the language. And I feel like that's why, another reason why they're so strong in the language, is because they heard it young. And that's what we're encouraging. So hi, Shka.
So, what was the question? I didn't get the question. I was.
Well, now let SENÇOΘEN Squel Quintal Angana. Your thoughts today on
Yeah. So if I go right back to when things started, I should say, first of all, I guess, that I've really only spoken SENÇOԹEN to my daughter since she was born. The only time I've used English with her is when she's really got in trouble. Otherwise, everything I say to her, it is all in SENÇOԹEN. It's always been that way, right from the baby talk on up. She's 10 years old now. And, that was a commitment that I pushed myself to do, because it's what I told my elder I was going to do, the one who taught me to get me to that point of actually speaking, conversing, was late Ray Sam, and I was really lucky to have that time with him. I had the mentor apprenticeship relationship with him, so I'd go over to his home. We would sit at the table and we would have sessions of SENÇOԹEN where we would engage conversation different games and things like that, and it was a lot of fun. So he got me from that point of what I often refer to as token phrases and words and things to actually engaging in conversation and thinking in language and speaking. And you know, he would ask me what I was going to do with the language afterwards. What are you going to do with what are you going to do with SENÇOÞEN afterwards? And he would kind of hold us all accountable for that and ask us about what's the next step. You know, are you just going to learn how to speak this and that's it? You know, are you going to do something with it? And you know, some of those responses were, well, I'm going to become a teacher and teach in the school and stuff like that. And actually, at the time, I wasn't in school to be a teacher. I was for visual arts, so I was taking a real different path. You know, all my strelicha, my colleagues, you know, or you know, they were all involved with education, so they got all their bachelor degrees in education. Myself, it's fine arts, so I was kind of shying away from that commitment, and you know, I said, well, you know, it just so happened we were expecting our daughter at that time, you know, when I was being asked that. I said, well, when my daughter's born, I'm just going to speak to her in SENÇOԹEN. That's all I'm going to do is speak to her in SENÇOԹEN, you know. So, you know, and he acknowledged that, and, you know, he was like, basically like, well, good for you and all this stuff, you know, and you know, he really encouraged me with that. And unfortunately, he didn't get to meet her in person because he passed before she was born. But you know, I remembered that commitment that I had spoken to him. So, you know, I had to own up to that, and that's the way it's been since. And so in that sense, I guess it's quite strong here. So it's that reciprocity is the thing that we have to work on, because English is such a prominent thing everywhere. And this is one thing I could say to everyone who's learning the language is, you know, if your child is learning the language as a first language, you don't have to worry about English. You don't have to do that whatsoever, because it is everywhere. You go outside the home, you're out on the street, you're at the store, you put the TV on, you put the radio on, you got YouTube, you got everything. Everything is in English. They're not going to be deprived of that whatsoever. They're going to get it. So, so developing that reciprocity, I think, is a big thing. Anyways, I'm straying from the question. Yeah, I've been speaking to her for a long time.
So a little bit about Lanong School Out before we go.
Did just have a couple more questions, Renee, as well.
Okay, great.
We have 3 more questions. The second question is, what advice would you have for new language learners?
Be patient with yourself.
Don't give up. Always don't give up. Don't give up. You'll soon learn if you keep at it. You know. My late cousin used to say, Earl Claxton used to say, we didn't lose our language overnight, and we're not going to gain it back overnight. But do what we can while we can. I've been working on language for over 40 years.
Yeah, I would just agree with that. And one of our famous sayings from one of our elders, you know, use what you know. And just like how Renee was saying in the chat there about Aranganat, and there was a time when I think our eldest called us mom and dad at one time, but we switched up on them, and we if she would say mom or dad, we wouldn't answer them. On a cheat and squirrel, we'd say, I don't know what you're saying. If they said mom or dad, and we would just, if they'd only say me entertain. So now these days, our oldest, she's 16. So if she teases us, she'll call me daddy just to tease me. So because it kind of gets on my nerves. But just about that, it's very, very important just to keep at it, and plugging away. Daily practice, and I didn't get a chance to say this earlier, but I didn't even speak until I was in my late 30s, no, early 30s, I guess, but it took a while. It took a long time before I was comfortable to even go ahead and speak. And all it was self-study and always asking questions. I'd always ask questions, making sure you always ask and what you want to know. So, yeah, Ashka.
I couldn't slate well in square. And two slate say when snittle and schwakwa and ngana nitlex and schwakwa. He and slaying say in square. When at and I and stitcha. As a sweet when at they laksa and shay. So I'm just saying, it's good to value it, but, really love your language. Love your language and care for it like it's one of your relatives, a good friend of yours, and you look after it. And when you have that in your heart, when you feel that way, and I love my language, and I tell you that, because when you feel that way, it makes the work so much easier. And I really do love this language, and it's so it makes it easy for me to be a part of this almost all day, every day. It's a part of my life. It almost seems like I do a disservice in saying that it's a part of my life, because it's really inside here, it's a part of me, and so I really if I could recommend that, it seems kind of funny to say it as a recommendation, but if you find it in your heart to feel that way about your language, it's just going to be easy, I mean, it's not to say that the work isn't going to be hard at times, but you're going to persevere if you feel that way, if it means that much to you, so I think that's really important. So quant and square. Look after it.
Hey, Chacos and state with use your purse, book quitchel, book kuchil, book tangen, book snake. I pray for your families, all the things that are important in your life. Make that prayer a language prayer every day, because it makes you think of everything and everything around you in our world, in your world that's important to you. If you want your language to survive, you have to put the secret part out there to a creator, and it'll help you. Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Chika. I'm going to combine two questions. This question is, how long does it take to become more fluent or feel confident in the language? And what resources are available, like CDs or videos? I know that there was a link shared in the description, but if anyone wanted to speak to that.
I'm going to quickly say that, I really feel like the learners are learning a lot faster these days. There's a lot more resources. So like the video shared through YouTube, everything you can learn. So I should say that, a very, very important aspect for us for me, myself, is that I did grow up with SENÇOÞEN alphabet throughout grade school, but I didn't ever speak. I felt like I was really confident in writing SENÇOԹEN. So that literacy, which is brand new to a First Nations language, you know, helped me as a learner, so I could self-study. So yeah, that was the biggest part of it. So with that being said, there is a lot of, I feel like these days that would be a strength to have, is to know the alphabet and practice pronouncing the sounds. And then so you're able to do that self-study through YouTube and stuff. And all the other resources, and there is a lot more to come. It just takes a lot of time to do them, so we're still plugging away at creating and developing for new learners. But yeah, I feel like it takes a lot longer. It's hard to say. It always just depends on your ability to participate, make yourself participate. So your contribution to your own learning, I guess. Because it's easy to say you're gonna practice every day, but we all know life gets in the way of many things. English is in the way. English is everywhere, like Bennett was saying. So, but you know, self-study. I think a hard 2 years, you could be a really strong speaker, kind of thing. That's my opinion, anyway. So, hi, Scott.
It takes a little while to get confident. I remember when I first stood up to speak in front of my elders, my legs were shaking. And I was feeling so backward about what I was doing in front of them, but they made me do it. And that was my beginnings in it. We had to build a lot of capacity to get where we're at. In order to get there, we have to do a lot of work to get to where we are. And that's a big part of the process of returning language back to a natural life. And so it's important to get that done. And it's a lot of work, but it's coming along very good now. And I notice that the new learners are learning faster because, like Panal was saying, we have a lot more resources compared to what we used to have when we were sourcing all that out yet when we were younger. So we've gotten to this part by working together, all working together. Thanks, Scott.
And I'll just kind of continue on. First of all, a little bit from what SENÇOԹEN is saying there. You know, that part about confidence is so important. And as each new cohort emerges, we recognize how important that is, to the point where we recognize that it's a part of this healing process from the colonial legacy, from the legacy of residential school. And I recall a time that we had an evening class, and one of my relatives, one of my uncles who was a part of that class, you know, I remember leading up to that class, and he was so happy to be a part of that class. He was looking forward to it, and, you know, he was all smiles about that until we got to the class and we were going over some really basic exercises. It wasn't even like an immersion thing. It was pretty straightforward, just writing words on the board and everybody take turns pronouncing this. Well, you know, we demonstrated and then they did, right? And it was really straightforward. And then it came time to my relative that was there. And he stood up and he was trembling. He was trembling. He's normally a really outspoken person. And I've never in my life seen him become suddenly so afraid, you know. And he was shaking and he says, "I can't do it." He says, "It's too hard. I can't say that." And then he just sat down. We never seen him again after that. He never came back, you know. And we talk about that because there's this big part of us that has to heal from that legacy of colonization, residential school, all of these things that have happened to us as a people, you know. Sometimes you think it's a miracle that we're still here, you know. And so that healing is so important. So on the other part, you know, I'm thinking just in terms of sort of in my reflection and my experience, you know, both as a learner and as a teacher, we've kind of come to this point now where we've kind of devised some, well, I shouldn't say devised, we've accumulated various methods to teach and learn language, and so, you know, I think one of the big ones is TPR, and there are other sort of like methodologies, which, if you don't know TPR is total physical response. And it's really based on engaging sort of the environment and modeling language through actions. And so demonstrating explicitly what those terms are and really refraining from, so it's a good immersion exercise. And for about the first month, you could learn to really comprehend a lot of basic commands. So you could really get bossed around and understand what you're getting bossed around about. You start to understand that stuff when you're just being told to go do this, go do that, you know, and so on, right? Modeling things and then getting them to do that and so on, right? So that's, I think within about a month's time, you can have your ears tuned up to responding to all of that. So then I think for then it comes into that sort of realm of building up their confidence to actually speak, you know. So I think that seems to be a more gradual process of building up that confidence, and that ranges anywhere from another month to, you know, a year or so. I think depending on how comfortable they are with actually being able to express themselves. Some cases it's like even 2 years, you know. And like I said, that healing is so important, you know. You never know until you're actually saying the words, until you're actually speaking that. And for myself, I like my own experience to what SENÇOÞEN is talking about. Same thing basically happened to me when I had to stand up in front of my elders and speak. I stood up and I felt myself sort of jittering there, a little shaky. And I'm more of a fair-skinned Huilno, so you could really see it when I blush. Face just went right beet red. Probably looked like my head was about to explode or something like that. So I got so shy and embarrassed, but the words kept falling out of my mouth anyways. You know, I just did it for them because I respected them so much. And that was a good push for me. And then it got a little bit easier after that. So sometimes you just kind of have to make that first sort of plunge. You get your foot in the door. You might say that, you know, you come out of your comfort zone or something like that. You know, those things are important, you know. It's like sometimes you never know until you finally actually take that step forward. So it always falls on you, you know. Nobody gets spoon-fed the language. It's not the Matrix, you know. So you got to do the work. Iska.
That's a very important point about that. And, you know, this being, webinar based on wellness, and that's, you know, a very, very, very important point, and that we have to kind of deal with that. Everybody has that individual challenge of dealing with that aspect of colonization, what English has done to our SENÇOÞEN, our own being. And so we have to get past that. It's a big part of the healing. So Haishka Panech Kunta look at that. Genuinely. Very, very important. So Haishka. Well, a couple more.
That was really good insight on some of the questions we had. There's one more question that I'm just going to combine again that will actually might lead into talking about the schools. So the question is, what steps can someone take to become a teacher, and how do you apply to the program at UVic for the language revitalization? And then the second part to that question, I believe I'm kind of portraying this question right. So how do you deal with conflicts where you're teaching language from a grassroots approach to kind of more of an institutionalized approach at like with a organization or with a like university, say? But if after this question, if you just want to go right into talking about the school, that would be great.
Just being conscious of the time. I know, is it okay if we go past a little bit? Just a little bit of, I was just worried about the time ending at 1:30.
Yeah, we can go.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Okay, that's a very important part of language revitalization as well, is to be able to have that root to your community, to your family, to your home, to your knowing where you come from. And you know, like Panech kind of mentioned about that, is you have to be able to find that somehow. And you know, I just consider myself so lucky to have my father to be able to be there for us, and our all the way through, you know, being there for us, whether as an inspiration to be not only a pass on the Shwanenks or pass on the beings of being a good father myself, and doing my best to be that. And that's kind of what it takes to have that grounding, and is really knowing your family. And again, I consider myself lucky because I know that's not the it's not always like that for everybody, and everybody has different challenges. And so in that aspect, I'm really lucky to have that that grounding for myself. And when we go to university, and being in the going through university through UVic, again, I feel like I was really lucky because we went to a program that really acknowledged the struggles of the Khulunguk people, and also accepted all of our wishes, and that was to be able to study SENÇOÞEN through university. And I think that's a great question that Panech can, and Maine, if you want to talk about, is that aspect to being able to join the SENÇOԹEN East. So that's another aspect of our school that we didn't really talk about, is new teachers coming up. There has so far been this is the second cohort that's going through, which is called the SENÇOΘEN East program through UVic, that I'll let one of you guys talk about. But they're both instructors through teach through SENÇOΘEN East right now, and working towards graduating the next cohort of students. So it's an amazing opportunity. But we always said that you have to bring who you are to those universities and not let it change you too much, because in those institutions. But to me, I can't fully give you examples because I feel like I was lucky in where I didn't get changed too much in those areas, because again, we had programs that were offered to us that were so accepting of the challenges and of who we are, and be able to give us what we were asking for, which is those papers that we need to be able to be professionals in these areas. So yeah, so Haishka, Hela Konsalekna.
So I'll kind of speak to that a little bit for now, at least for the university portion. I guess I'll say that our program is in partnership with, of course, the University of Victoria. The name of our program is SENÇOÞEN East, which is carrying the language forward on the spoken word. And it's in partnership with the Indigenous Education Department, which is in partnership with the Education Department. All these sort of sub branches, but the Indigenous Education Department houses a number of different languages from different regions. They go as far as Dene Territory and the Northwest Territories, to further up north to the Kwakwaka'wakw speaking peoples and the SENÇO'EN on the west coast, the Nuchanos regions there, and out in Chase area with the, I'm trying to think of it, it's Malakaksisnes Esquel in the interior. I can't remember the name of their language. So they're all housed under the Indigenous Education Department, you know. So I think getting in touch with somebody there, I think probably put you through, as well as your sponsorship, whoever that is, who you work with, you know. But so to kind of veer off a little bit now and sort of think in terms of this question about community and education institutions and things like that, you know. I like to say that, you know, when you consider language, one of the things about it, and this is a concept that I embrace, but when you learn about the language, you learn about the world all over again. You're going to find context for everything that exists in the world within the context of your language, you know, and that's really delving into the worldview. And that's an important process. So I say, if you're learning, embrace it. And with that said, when you're to look at it from a constructive point of view of thinking in terms of developing resources and curriculum, and, you know, working within the frameworks of institutions, like, you know, whether it's school at the primary or elementary, middle, high school, or at the post-secondary levels, they're going to be framed within those contexts. And that is something that we tend to refer as the domain of education. That's one of an infinite possibility of domains. You know, they're as small or as large as we like to think of them. So, for example, so if I were to think in terms of education as one domain, and that's a big domain, culture is another domain, another huge domain. Community, the home. In the home, you have rooms. There's the kitchen. There's the bathroom. There's the living room. There's outside the house. Those all can be domains. Art can be a domain. Literature can be a domain. Walking up the mountain can be a domain. So the possibility of all of these potential areas that you can focus on language is virtually, you know, limitless. So they're only as far as your mind can expand out towards and think about, or to consider with regard to the language. So I hope I answered your question. I hope I didn't veer off too far. I tend to babble on. So
I wish we had all day to sit and listen to your guys' words and wisdom. This kind of brings our webinar to an end, and I would just like to say thank you and haichka to our attendees for taking time today to prioritize language revitalization. And I would like to raise my hands to our guest speakers who have shared their experience and journey as language activists and learners and champions. So Haichka, with that, I'll hand the webinar back to our guest speakers for a prayer song. And with that, after that, the webinar will be over. To the attendees, you'll be sent a survey, and we appreciate your feedback, and we look forward to improving our webinars and making any changes necessary. So, Haichka Siam.
Haichka, Squinchi. Neshi, the Nequelia, Siam, Nastella, Quinton, he let land and a tingle disquest this chi. He got now was Jake, sir, who sleeps like Lanang at the squelt at the Need a good laka, Quang, sting it. Ningles, it's led the hell CM, Wang, Langle text, the squelch the spell, each one names it is actually. I'm just saying thank you and acknowledging each and every one of you that came to listen today and be a part of this. And I thank in the Creator for that gave us a sacred language to have to speak so we could be a nation unto ourselves. The song that I will sing is, I call it the acknowledgement song, acknowledging Creator's sacred work wherever he put his sacred work, where he made nations unto nations and made many sacred and beautiful lands and territories. That embedded in that is our skills, our beliefs, our laws, our chonangs, our ways, our sachali, sacred teachings of life. It's in there. And so I'm going to acknowledge the Creator with this song, Haishkam. Mokun's Angustal, who comes here to shut that who successfully ill got the disquest dispel, he said at the end, he attends Hattens when she is to see him. Haiska. That's my prayer.
See him, Haiska.
Haiska hela, Jesus na scoila quins quins ella. Siam na main, siam na schwakwa penech, siam na main singten, Haiska quins Hashka Kunskonengus at the. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody, all the panelists and all the participants.
See him, Haiska.